So, I mean, there are a variety of main arcs because again, for people who haven't maybe are just tuning in now, there are many. This is a planned show that's kind of had a 5-year plan to begin with, so it kind of strings things out a little bit slowly, but there are some definite arcs. The first one is really Sinclair's arc and his involvement with the Minbari and how that develops. As we mentioned, he was a pilot during the Earth Minbari War that was 11 years before season one, in which the Minbari were slaughtering everybody. They were basically wiping out Earth, and then they suddenly stopped. And Sinclair was captured and has a hole in his mind, as they say, and doesn't remember the 24 hours in which he was captured, during which the Minbari surrendered. And so, we see a lot of interaction with him and Delenn, and he's starting to pick up some bits and pieces, and Delen's kind of leaving some hints. We find out that Delenn, or the Minbari, had orchestrated him becoming the commander of the station, being very low on the list, but everyone else was rejected. So that's kind of I'd say it's one of the lead storylines at least.
That's kind of Sinclair's arc. You don't consider that to be, like, I would say that the overall arc of the show would be, well, it's the title of season 2, which is the coming of the Shadow War, right? That kind of thing, right? Like there's some sort of conflict coming, and that's what this isn't that? Would you could not call that the arc of the season, like the overall big picture?
I mean, the name of this season is Signs and Portents, so it's kind of the thing leading up to that. So,
Right.
at the end, we kind of saw that coming to a head and where that's going to launch into. But this season was a lot of scattered things, a lot of introductions, of the different characters and kind of what they're about and some background. What does someone else want to talk about one of the other ones?
Well, I
Jeff,
think
why don't you go ahead, then Jason, or vice versa?
Oh,
One of the other main arcs.
one of the main arcs. So as far as Sinclair goes, he started off seeming like he was had a little bit of PTSD from the experience, but not knowing the details of everything. I don't know, without going into the character or the way that the character is portrayed. I don't know. I'll have to think
Well,
about it. He kind of progressed through. As the show progressed, I think his character became more personable and more relatable. Or many times in the early episodes, I think I said, kind of feels like we're watching a 70s police serial or
right, where he has to take charge of the situation.
Yeah, very forced, and and as we got towards the end of the season, you saw less and less of that. So I think that was a very big improvement for that character and the relatability, because you can't relate to something that just something seems off about it, unnatural. So.
Well, and I think to the arc of Signs and Portents, I think the other thing that you look at, not just with Sinclair and the where he's going with the hints that Delenn is giving him, but also throughout the season we have the beginnings of hints of things to come with leading to the assassination of the president, leading to whatever is going to be going on with Psychor. All of these things, you have threads that are started to start to come to fruition, and I think those things are going to play out in second and third seasons, because you have the beginnings of things like with Bester and Morden and the shadows are here and that kind of thing, and you only get those teases of what's to come, and all of this is building throughout the season, so that when we get to this moment where the president's ship is destroyed, and Delenn goes into a chrysalis. All of this is kind of coming to a head, and Kosh even says, it started.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
all of these things come together in this last couple of episodes that now sets up going into season 2.
the next arc.
Yeah, the next arc.
whole-
Yeah, and well, as Jason you mentioned, there are all these hints of this unrest on Earth. Between Psychor is interfering in elections, which they're not supposed to be doing. There is an
Right.
election at the very beginning of the season,
Right.
in which
Yep.
Santiago gets elected, and Clark is the vice president, of course. And then you've got the Earth First, and then you see this kind of strife within the military and people that don't trust. Several people that don't trust Sinclair and what he's doing there, and trying to probe that. So,
There's a lot of that.
right, yeah,
Sinclair's authority is questioned a lot
right,
throughout
yeah,
this season.
and then you have, of course, the stuff with the senators he's always trying to appeal to, who never back him up sufficiently. Right? It's just kind of like, well, screw you.
I think that's a deliberate portrayal of politicians. I think that's
right.
what I think he's trying to. Straczynski was trying to do that deliberately
Yeah.
to show how they waffle,
Right.
even
Now-
even in the future. You
Right.
know,
and so that's kind of a whole storyline on its own. It does segue with Sinclair a lot, right? But it's really something that's going on kind of behind the scenes and implied off stage. Oh, there's also the Mars
the Mars Rebellion
Yeah,
and
the Mars
Io. There
Rebellion.
was issues on Io
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and those things, those are dropped throughout the whole season. Garibaldi. I mean, when we get into him, I mean, we'll definitely, that's something that he's got a history of.
Yeah.
But Sinclair, did pick his. He specifically requested Garibaldi as his right hand, man for, to be the station security chief. So
Right. But
Well-
we do, we do see a little bit about everybody. We do get some background on Ivanova with her
Yeah.
family and why she's the way she is.
we get
And-
background on Garibaldi. We get.
Right.
We do get a little bit of background on Sinclair. He comes from a long line of, ace pilots and so on and so forth. I don't know how much more they delved into that. I don't. But that's what I recall. Just
Yeah.
off the top of my head, is that his great grandfather or whatever, so many generations back, fought in the Battle of the Bulge or something like that.
Yeah, they were They has
Aviators,
history of
yeah.
aviator. And,
British aviators too, I think, weren't they?
I think you're right.
Maybe.
And I think in his quarters he has like a Sinclair Aviation sign or something like
Right,
like an
right.
old antique sign or whatever.
So pilots. He comes from a family of pilots and fighter pilots, for that matter.
What about you, Snob? What do you got to say?
Did Jason get his chance?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, I did.
You
Although I do should point out, Greg in the chat on my channel notes that I got my audio completely sorted out. So Greg,
No.
thank you for jinxing that. I appreciate
You
it.
just invited the
It's
Stone
funny,
Martin Weasels
because
to come.
Mindy before Mindy came down here, she sent me a note and said that the buzz sounds like it's back, and it has kind of been there in the last few shows that we've done in the midday, but I don't hear it right now. And then Greg makes a comment on it, so I'm sure it's going to be coming back by the end of the show.
Yeah, and Dustin does bring up a good point, by the way, that Sinclair's story had to be rushed. And I think that's for the obvious, upcoming what we talked about early on at the very beginning.
Yeah, obvious in
Um,
hindsight, but yeah.
Yeah.
You really think they did that? Like, you think Straczynski? I mean, we
Yeah.
know that Straczynski knew that Sinclair was the doctor was sick.
Well, I'm
Right.
sure he was dealing with it
He was dealing
throughout
with it,
the
but
season.
so
but
you think they rushed his? They made a change in season 1 in order to, get more of Sinclair's story out than they would have normally, because they were going
Yeah,
to-
because
he might leave.
his medical condition was making it such that there were times This is what I've read, just in various notes. There were times on set that things were a little bit difficult and stressful.
Right.
And I think the further along they got in the season, Straczynski and Michael O'Hare were having conversations that he was not going to be able to keep going. And so I don't know if they rushed his story or not. They it would make sense that they did. Although when I was sitting there watching the time travel with the Babylon Squared, when older Sinclair shows up in the 2001 Space Odyssey astronaut
Tribute
suit,
suit.
I'm like, okay, he's leaving the show. What is this arc going to be like? How are they going to deal with this in future seasons?
That's what I
how are they
thought,
going to
too.
address that? But of course, you're watching it for the very first time. You don't know that he's about to leave.
Yeah.
Right.
Because we get to the season finale and they're planning their wedding and everything's going to be great, and it's the last episode and you don't know he's going to be gone.
Right.
So when you come back to
you're
season
left
2,
at the end of the season, there's spoilers. He's not going to be in season 2, at least not
yeah,
prominently.
Commander.
So, and there's always a way to explain a lot of things. Even going from the pilot to episode 1, the very first thing that they had to do was explain why the Doctor is
Yeah.
different.
well, and at
they
least
introduced the
it only took a couple of lines, not an entire 12-minute scene or anything like that. I mean,
Doctor. Right.
modern writers would have to talk about everything having to do with it and would take forever with a lot of unnecessary exposition, as opposed to just, oh, he got transferred and we're done and out and it doesn't
Well,
matter
and there
anymore.
was a justifiable reason for why the two that left were transferred.
Yeah.
And that does get explained throughout this season. What happened? There was an attempted assassination on Ambassador Kosh. So, what do in one of the characters actually got to see both of them. Well, two of them actually. One of them got to touch his mind, and the other one got to see what happened.
Yeah.
The events of what happened, and the other one actually got to see him physically, what he looked like. So they, of course, were both recalled, rushed back to Earth. And that's reasonable.
I mean, even Babylon 5 is a military station, so any of the military people, you could remove them at any time and just say they've been reassigned for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even have to say, you wouldn't even have to give a reason. It's just like, oh, you're only, normally, unlike Star Trek and stuff, you don't normally get a position and you get to stay there for 7 years or something.
Well,
Normally
now
it's a couple of years and you're gone.
Now, I need to point out that at the beginning of Star Trek, the original series, the first set aside the
Captain
first
Pike.
pilot, set aside the first pilot with Pike because it never made it to air until much later. But when the second pilot hit, Where No Man Has Gone Before, you have Dr. Mark Piper, not Leonard McCoy. And it's never explained because the next episode, Bones is there as the chief medical officer. Piper is not. And in universe canon, Piper is filling in because McCoy is not able to get to the ship, soon enough, on time, whatever. He's going through his divorce. I can't even remember what it was. But Piper comes out of retirement to be the CMO for a temporary assignment until McCoy's available and he can join the Enterprise. You never got any of that explained in the show. It was just, Mark Piper is the chief medical officer during the first episode with Gary Mitchell and the psychic stuff and all of that, and then he's gone. Poof.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, on a military ship every year.
Yeah.
some portion of the crew are going to be flipping
Right.
over. It's just the way that these things go. So you could easily get rid of anybody you want or introduce people, and you wouldn't even
You
have
can
to.
out, you could just write them right off. Yeah,
That's right.
it's an excuse.